Welcome new and old friends. My name is 242, and today I have 2 stories for you this evening. Turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. It's about to get spooky. I laughed when the old gypsy woman told me I'd die falling off a chair. What she didn't tell me is that it would be kicked out from under me with a noose tied around my neck. What's Dead Should Stay Dead by P.A. Nightmares. He woke up, confusion crossed his face. The last thing he remembers is answering his door, and then the world went black. He tried to look around, but he could not move at all. Struggling, his environment slowly came into focus. He was in his kitchen. The familiar hum of the refrigerator is the only noise that he hears. The longer that he is there, the louder the hum becomes until it's almost deafening. Suddenly, the door to his trailer is open, and in wafts the stench of death and decay. Scared, he starts to cry out for help. However, the voice that responded to him was the last one he ever wanted to hear again. "Honey, be quiet, please. You'll wake the neighbors. It's rude to be that loud at this time of night." The familiar female voice spoke to him in a sweet, assuring tone. "You are safe, honey. I'm not going to hurt you. I just went for a little walk while I waited for you to wake."
Amanda, how are you here? I buried you a week ago.
"Oh, Jim, our vows said till death do us part. I may have died, but you did not, so I came back to be with you, my love." She stepped into the light. The gash in her throat, where I had sliced her ear to ear, leaked pus and blood every time she breathes or speaks. Insects are crawling in and out of her open head wound, and her now missing eye. Seeing her makes him scream bloody murder, the sight and smell of her causing him to expel the contents of his stomach. However, since his head is tied into place, he begins to choke. Amanda rushes forward and cuts his head free, allowing him to get the vial out of his throat. After Jim finishes vomiting, his next question sparks anger into Amanda.
"Vicky, where's Vicky?"
He gasps. Amanda turns his chair around, and he is met with the grisly sight of Vicky's lifeless body. Her throat cut, and her head had been bashed in. Amanda snarls for the first time. She sounded like the undead abomination that she is. "You killed me to be with her. I came back for you," she yells. "Because not even death can stop my love for you, yet you are more concerned with Vicky," she mocks. "Well, I did to Vicky what you did to me, Jim, so now that she's dead and I'm back, things will change. Do you understand me?" Jim by now was so scared, all he could do was nod. He swallowed and chanced a question for his wife.
"Honey, are you just going to keep me tied to this chair all night? Would you be so kind as to untie me?"
he asked hesitantly. She replied coldly, "If you try anything, I will make you like me." Amanda walks over to the kitchen sink and grabs the largest knife she could find. Bending down over her husband, she cuts the ties that are restraining him. As she does, the knife slips, cutting him deeply. She looks him deep in the eyes and licks the blood off the knife. A sick smile crossing her face. "Remember, if you betray me, I'll make you like me." Her husband looks at her with fears in his eyes.
"I understand,"
he says, defeated. He looks at Vicky's body, sorrow overtaking him. However, a plan was forming in how he would get rid of his wife once and for all.
"Sweetie, would you be so kind as to help me get rid of the body? We could not just leave it here. Our lovely home would start to stink of rotten decay.
Jim thinks to himself.
Well, more than you already have.
It brought a smile to his face. Amanda looked at him with a cold, dead look in her eye. If this is some kind of trap, Jim, I will make sure you suffer for it.
Let us get rid of her. I want you to be happy. I will go bury her in the backyard. Then we can be happy together. Would this please you?
She eyed him suspiciously. Why would you want to make me happy after you killed me?
My love, you came back for me. Had I known your love for me was so strong, I would have never harmed you. Please, let me make it up to you and dispose of her,
he says in a sweet and convincing tone. Fine, do as you please, but if you...
Yes, if I betray you, you will make me like you. I understand. I just want to prove my love for you.
He dug a 6-foot hole as Amanda watched with her cold, dead eye. He lowered a crude wooden box into the darkness. Him and his wife grabbed Vicky's body and carried her over. Once they reached it, they lowered her body into the grave. His wife smiled as she looked down at Vicky. Oh, honey, I'm so happy you realized your mistake, Amanda said happily. As she was distracted, Jim had moved behind her, grabbing a shotgun he always hid inside a barrel.
I always know what I want,
Jim said before blasting his wife in the back, knocking her into the hole. He jumped in the grave himself. He had hidden the hammer and spikes in the box. He started to quickly nail his wife onto the wood, but neither of them had noticed something until the rope ladder he had intended to use to get out fell to the dirt next to him. Vicky had come back to life and had cut the rope. Jim looked up at her in shock.
Vicky!
He yelled. Distracted, Amanda bit him hard in the neck, making him scream as she pulled him close and pulled the lid over both of them. Before he could pull away, she wrapped herself around him, and soon he heard dirt hitting the wooden box. Before everything went black, he heard his wife say, "Till death do us part." If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. My friends love to tell me that my boyfriend is a lot like my father. As I gaze down to the cigarette burns on my stomach, I realized he is exactly like my father. Blink by PA Nightmares. This has been going on for weeks. Little things at first. A lamp was on the other side of my room. The spots on my dog seemed to be slightly off. But now it's increasingly getting worse, like when I'm looking in the mirror, my hair is lighter than it used to be. Or my mom's Ford is now a Toyota, and when I ask her if she had gotten a loaner vehicle and what happened to her van, she says she's had this van for years. I figured I must have gotten the makes of the vehicles mixed up. I have never been much of a car person, so I let it go and went on with my life as if nothing was wrong. However, last night I had a dream of me sitting with my two best friends at lunch, talking about boys we thought were cute and how we can't wait for school to be over because we wanted to go to the beach. The people in my dreams were different from my real friends. For example, Angie's hair was pink instead of blonde. My friend of 5 years, Jess, I was now calling Jessica, a name she had always hated. I woke from my dream and got ready for school, suffering through a boring morning. I was ready for lunch. Getting to see my friends has always been the highlight of my day. The bell rang to signal the end of 5th period. I got up and left the classroom, practically running to the cafeteria, elated to see my friends. Once they came into view, I noticed Angie's hair right away. Jess was sitting beside her as I approached, and I cautiously commented, "Hey Angie, nice hair." Angie gave me a very confused glance. "What do you mean? My hair's been like this for years." "Jess, back me up. Just yesterday, her hair was blonde, right?" I stared at Jess, hoping for her reassurance. Jess glared at me before rolling her eyes in an exaggerated manner. "No, her hair has been pink for years now. Why did you call me Jess? You know I like being called Jessica." They both just started to laugh at me, like I had suddenly become this punchline in the world's greatest joke. "Come on, you two, the joke is over. This is not funny anymore. I know you had blonde hair just yesterday, Angie. Also, Jess, I know for a fact that you hate being called Jessica. You tell me all the time that you hate when your mom calls you Jessica because it sounds too formal, and you hate formal. For crying out loud, I have never even seen you wear a dress." I was slowly getting both frustrated and distressed. Were they just messing with me? My friends looked at me with concern clear on their face. They stood up and put their hands on my shoulders. Angie spoke up. "Hey, you feeling okay, girl? Why don't we get you to the nurse? We don't know what's wrong with you. If you're sick and have a fever, but you're not acting like yourself at all." Not wanting to argue, I let my friends escort me to the nurse's office. After getting there, I told the nurse I was feeling sick and would like to go home. "What seems to be the matter, sweetie?" the nurse asked me while feigning concern. "I just don't feel well. I'm not acting myself today. I think I might be coming down with something. I really didn't think explain that my entire world was changing around me was going to do me any favors in this situation." The nurse checked my temperature. "Oh my, you seem to have a small fever. Let me call your mother and have her come pick you up." "Thank you. May I lie down until she gets here?" "Of course, sweetie. The bed's just over there," as she nodded her head towards the concrete hard bed that I was sure was older than I was. I headed over to the bed and laid down. I was thinking of how strange the day had turned out to be. Just yesterday, I knew that my friends were different, but just like all the other stuff that had changed, it occurred after I had dreamt it. Am I seeing the future? No, that's not it. That wouldn't make sense. That would not account for how Jess and Angie claimed that her hair had been pink for years. So what is actually going on with me, and why me? I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear my mom come into the office. "Where is she at?" I could hear my mom rushing into the room. She had never handled me even getting a paper cut well, let alone when I was actually sick. The nurse sighed. She was far too used to dealing with parents like mine. "She's in the room just over there. She wanted to lie down until you got here." Mom came in to check on me with a concerned expression and asked, "Are you okay? Parthia, tell me what's wrong." "I don't know, Mom. I just started to feel sick. I started to get very confused, probably due to the fever. I just want to go home and rest, Mom." I knew there was no way I could tell my mom what I was actually thinking. "Okay, sweetie, let's get you home and into bed." My mom draped my arms around her shoulder and carried me to her car. Almost like she was sure I was dying. It didn't seem to matter to her that I just had a fever and that I was perfectly capable of walking on my own 2 feet. On top of the fact that I was being carried out of my school in front of my friends like I was a baby was super embarrassing, and I knew I would never live this shit down. Getting home, I went to my room and laid down, falling asleep quickly. I was plagued with horrible nightmares. In this nightmare, I was looking down as my 2 best friends were being hunted by a creature with glowing red eyes. It looked like it had no physical body, almost as if it was a manifestation of pure hate, and the only thing visible was the glowing red eyes that shined in the darkness. My friends ran through the house screaming in terror as they entered the living room. I could see that Angie's parents lay dead on the floor, ripped apart by something. I assumed this entity was responsible for this carnage. Angie stopped to look at her parents for a brief second. Her father was disemboweled, his organs strewed across their once pristine carpet. Her once beautiful mother mutilated beyond recognition. Her body was shredded, and even more shocking was that her mother seemed to be missing her head. Angie screamed in anguish at the sight of her parents. Her screams deepened with panic as 4 slashes formed on her back and her blood began to flow freely. Jessica came rushing over and helped her off the floor. They staggered together, trying to escape their living nightmare. They kept running, but it was absolutely pointless. The entity caught up to them in a blink of an eye. Had Jessica just left Angie there, she may have gotten away, but she could not leave her friend behind to die alone. Now they stood cornered by this monstrosity and had nowhere to run. The creature lunged and ripped and hacked at them, tearing off limbs. The entire time, the girls never stopped screaming. I jolted up in bed and screaming, thankful it was just a dream. I looked over the door and saw a pair of glowing red eyes boring into me. With a thud, I hit the floor, falling out of the bed, and I realized that the eyes in my doorway were just another bad dream. I ran to my mom's room. I need to go to Angie's. She's in trouble. I just know it. What do you mean? She asked me. I screamed, Angie is in trouble. I need to save her. Mom got out of bed. Fine, if you think she's in trouble and it will calm you down, then we will go to her house. We got into the car and raced to her house. I ran into her home just to witness the bloodiest thing I would ever see in my life. Just like in my dream, Angie's parents lay dead on the floor. Bloody parts littered the entire living room, and a pool of blood sat in the exact spot where Angie had been attacked. I rushed into the next room, and I wailed as I saw my 2 best friends mutilated beyond recognition. My mother must have heard my screams because she came running into the house only to cry out in shock. She pulled me off my 2 dead best friends and called the cops. I fought with her, not wanting to be separated from them. Soon, I was outside, sobbing on my mother's shoulder as she spoke to the police. I was so upset the police didn't even bother trying to talk to me. I wasn't injured, and my mom told them we only came over because I had forgotten some school projects, so the police let us go home after a few hours of questioning at the scene. Mom took me home to rest after the shock of finding that massacre. What was happening? Everything I dreamt had happened. It's like I'm the reason this is all happening. The world would be better off if I never existed. My friends would still be alive. How much better would the world be if my dreams were actually just dreams? At this moment, an idea came to me. If I caused a change to my friend's appearance, and if I was responsible for my friend's gory death, then why couldn't I dream that I was never born, or that I died before all of this happened? Yes, that would be perfect. Then none of my friends or their families' lives would have been ruined because of me. A plan took shape in my mind. If I could just lucid dream, or even control my nightmares, then I could go back to before I was born and stop all of this from ever happening. So I looked up how to lucid dream, and what came up was a checklist of things to do before bed and throughout the night. I started off small. I set an alarm for anywhere between 3 to 5 hours after I fell asleep. I started keeping track of my dreams in a journal, and when I would fall back asleep, I would try to do what they call a reality check. Looking into a mirror to see if my reflection was normal, press my hands against a solid object to see if they would pass through. The most common one I used was pushing my palms together. Slowly, I could tell the difference between when I was dreaming and when I was awake. It took me months, and I still did not have a very good handle on it. However, I did manage to not have any dreams where I killed anyone else. Little things kept changing, like my teachers were different and such, but I learned to live with it, knowing that once I got this down and carried out my plans, none of it would matter anyways. The night finally came. I decided I had control to choose where my dreams went, and that I had the ability to choose what I wanted to do in them. So that night, I lay down on my bed for what I thought would be the last time and focused on my mother, before she met my father and had me. It worked, but not in the way I expected. Last night, I dreamt that my mother was about 18 years old and had died in a car accident. When I woke up this morning, everything was different. The house I lived in, my bedroom, my mother was nowhere to be found, and only the pictures of my dad and his side of the family hung on the walls. Nowhere could I find a single picture of me with him. Even now, as I sit here typing this on my father's laptop, I am slowly fading away. So, if you ever find yourself questioning reality, like maybe your room changed slightly, your dog looks different, maybe you should find a way to control your dreams, or better yet, stop dreaming altogether, before you end up hurting people you love, or blinking yourself out of this reality. Pythia's father got home and opened his laptop to a document he did not write. His brows furrowed as he skimmed through the pages. After reading it, he commented to himself,
"Damn. Another oracle that did not work out. I can't seem to figure out why this keeps happening. Next time, maybe I should warn them about the dreams when they are young. This always seems to start after they hit puberty. The original Oracle of Delphi seems to have been the only one who could handle the weight of these abilities. Oh well, on to the next one."
His eyes started to glow a vibrant blue as he sighed, almost as though he was disappointed in himself. He slouched as a tear ran down his face, and slowly every trace of him and his former life vanished from the house. Thunder clapped outside as the last phantom of him disappeared. Some people swore they could see a bearded man's face form in the storm clouds that night. But just as quickly as the storm started, with a blinding white light, it was gone. Stay to the end, I have something new. I do hope you enjoyed these stories. Tell me what you think down below. This was a Patreon pick by PA Nightmares. Thank you for letting me read your stories. I always love reading them, PA. If you want to pick something I read, check out my Patreon. If you're a new friend, become an old friend by subscribing and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. I also have a podcast called Daydreams and Nightmares with 242, if you like to listen to the audio. And I also have merch and lots of different social medias to keep up to date. Now, let's get to the Sunday word. Yes, I stole this from Raven. I give you a random word, and I tell you what it means, and you write a story or a sentence with it. And then next Sunday, I'll read you all the replies. Our word is nonsuch, spelled Nonesuch. A person or a thing without equal, paragon. But as always, thank you for listening. You're all amazing and mean the world to me. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.